Hello and welcome to the first industry update of 2022. I'm Ruža Živkušić. Northern Territory is experiencing supply shortages as part of Stuart Highway remains submerged in floodwater due to recent heavy rain. The supply chain has come to a halt with calls for a more reliable transport route. Future wet weather is also a concern for the highway, which remains under half a metre of water, preventing direct travel between Adelaide and the Northern Territory. South Australian freight companies serving the northern part of country have been forced to take a 3,000-kilometre detour through New South Wales and Queensland in a desperate bid to help supermarkets restock. Northern Territory Transport Association has no start date for when trucks can resume carrying groceries along the highway. Here's more from the Executive Officer, Louise Bilato. Hi there, Louise. Thank you so much for joining us again for an industry update, and Happy New Year to you and your Industry Association members. Now, I just want to ask you, what pressure does this current condition of the Stuart Highway put on the transport industry overall?
Well, it's put a huge additional strain on the industry, but I have to say that the road transport operators have really stepped up, Ruza. It's been amazing how quickly they've pivoted and have now been coming the long detour, as they say, the long shortcut through New South Wales and Queensland. We're very grateful that the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator also has allowed, through a gazettal notice, the triple road trains to come through New South Wales. So that section of road that wasn't road train rated, they've given permission for those road trains to come through and now across the Barkly Highway.
When you talk about the short road cut, what exactly are we talking about? How long is the shortest road cut?
That's right. Well, it's approximately additional 3,000 kilometres round trip. So, a bit less than 1,500 kilometres each way, wow, in addition to what they usually do from Adelaide to Darwin return. So it adds 2 days at least of to the travel. It's obviously a different route. There's sections of the road through New South Wales, which is more smaller and bumpier than what they're used to, just coming straight up and down the Stuart Highway. So it's definitely a different job, and then having to come all the way through the Barkly and either turning left to go back up to Alice Springs or to come north to Darwin and Katherine. So a significant additional workload and responsibility for those operators that are doing it, and we're extremely grateful.
Definitely. Well, I'm sure that they're doing their best, but the question is just how empty or how bare are the grocery shelves in the Northern Territory there at the moment?
They were looking particularly bare on the weekend, but we're thinking that the routine is in place now, because one of the problems was getting all the fridge vans and equipment back to Adelaide to actually be able to be restocked and then sent again. So that's taken a bit of time to get into that rhythm. So there was insufficient additional equipment for a while. We've also got the retailers have got more stock out of Brisbane. So they've increased the number of road trains that are coming out of Brisbane for the supermarkets in Darwin as well. Our desperate need is for the rain to stop falling across the Barkly and for that highway to stay open.
Yeah. Now, with the highway, are you concerned about future wet weather and what strain they'll have on the road transport industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's water over a section of the Barkly Highway right now near Sudan Station, but what we're hoping is that more rain events don't come there. We know that South Australia has been inundated again, and that could really hamper the efforts to get the Stuart Highway open, particularly that section near Glendambo that has gone under. But also, we've been hearing that the rail would be able to be repaired within a fortnight, but there are some people reporting that that's probably ambitious, and it may be, another fortnight after that before the rail is fully operational again. And that's purely dependent on how quickly they can get access to the rail to start repairing those 18 sections.
And that obviously puts further strain onto the road transport industry and the truck drivers, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, hugely. And I mean, that's come on the back of the challenges that the workforce face with COVID, so that there are, a number of operators who've had two-up teams that have had to isolate both because one's been a close contact or one's actually, become infected with the virus, and, out of South Australia. And we don't have a ready casual workforce to slot into those, long distance road train operator jobs. That's a challenge, and we're, desperately hoping that that the virus stays out of the Territory workforce, and that that won't be another massive impact. But the Great Northern Highway is cut, so Perth to Darwin freight isn't coming. We're trying to organise at the moment more of the rail freight to start moving, because also whilst we're most focused on the supermarkets, obviously there's other freight which is critical and really important to be able to access, whether it's for spare parts or to repair other things. And if we don't get that in a timely fashion, we'll be in a quandary as well.
Yeah. And what message do you have to the government, Louise?
Well, I made this point last week as well. The Stuart Highway in particular is the national highway network. And there's parts of the Stuart Highway, and even at Glendambo, that the federal government that funds our national highway network 80% has been aware of for a very long time. So those sections of the Stuart Highway that are subject to flooding, even if it's, once in 50 years, they're the sections now that really need to have monies put into the upgrade of those sections so that it mitigates the risk of flood events closing the road. And that's a critical issue that needs to be in place, because the cost of what's going on at the moment is huge. There's a cost to the businesses, there's a cost to transport, there's a cost to the community, and that cost would be very easily offset by an investment in upgrading infrastructure. So you're minimising those places where flooding will close the road. It's the 21st century. We should be able to have the National Highway network, with as few flood-prone areas as possible.
Yeah, you would think that would be on the high priority list, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's sometimes because people say, well, it's only so rare, but it's not so rare. And again, that section of road near Glendambo, that's notorious, that's got nowhere to go. It's evaporating at I think it's 40 or 60 millimetres a day. So it's a swamp essentially. So unless something's done to actually upgrade the road, and it rains again there, then it'll be flooded.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Louise, for explaining that all to us, and hopefully this all gets resolved soon, and no rain in the coming weeks for you guys.
I know. Well, we've had a huge deluge in the top end, but we're used to that. But it's just how widespread this weather event has been. I mean, of course, it does seem exceptional, but yeah, I don't think we're out of the woods quite yet. The next week or two is going to be pretty comprehensive and a lot of effort.
Thank you. We'll catch up
with you
soon. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Western Australia's supply chain has been thrown into chaos due to crippling logistics network. The flooding, coupled with other pandemic-induced impacts in the eastern states, has created a logistical nightmare, according to Western Roads. Its chief executive, Cam Dumsney, believes more needs to be done to tackle the unprecedented supply chain. Here's what he's got to say. Hi there, Cam. Thank you for joining us all the way from Western Australia. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you, Rosie?
Good, thank you. Now tell us what more could be done, and how is this putting a pressure on your drivers in the western part of the country?
Okay, so let's set in context of this flood. So we obviously had a structural shortage of road train drivers, truck drivers in the state before COVID. COVID hit, then all of a sudden we've got surging iron ore, we've got surging gold, we've got a lot of people buying stuff online. So we're just increasing all this demand.
Yeah.
And then the government threw some road stimulus funding out. So now we need more trucks to support that. So obviously there's been a big demand for drivers and we've had a shortage and compounded by hard borders. Then along comes the floods. We've obviously had the East-West rail line flooded out. It will be closed until the 17th of February. And at the same time with the Great Northern Highway cut between Fitzroy Crossing and Halls Creek. So that severed our access to the East Kimberley. That's challenging.
So how challenging is it? What's the feedback from the drivers?
Look, the drivers are pushed. The companies are pushed. I've got managing directors of companies now driving trucks. Things are so tight. Yeah. We've got managing directors and general managers working in warehouses to package things to put it onto trucks. And that's before we have any COVID outbreak in any significant numbers. So we're obviously facing serious challenges, but look, on the plus side, which has been really good, over the weekend, we worked with the state and federal government, providing information, and they've now announced a couple of days ago that we're going to run land bridging, which is effectively, we'll for the first time be able to run triple road trains, the 53.5 metre road trains between Whyalla in South Australia to Kalgoorlie. And that's an 1,800 kilometre route. And then from there, we'll pick them up and we'll either move them in by rail or we'll move them in by 36.5 metres straight in down Greenmount Hill, straight into Perth. Now, that's an efficient system. It's now up to the retailers. I know they're already on it. They're starting to work that system about what they get on the trucks and get over here. So the system's starting to settle into this new situation. And we'll start getting stock into our supermarkets soon.
What's the advice for the consumers out there?
Look, the same as everybody says, and it's went right across the country. You've obviously had it with your high case numbers in the east there at some stages. We do get people that panic. You're not helping. That's the blunt reality. Just buy what you need. The system's now up. We'll start to see the flow through of product onto the shelves. It may not be brand A but you may be able to get brand B there. Look, those things are starting to work. It'll start to flow through in the early parts of next week. We'll be fine. And I come back to this, and we're in the cities. We tend to hyperventilate a little bit too much about this stuff, but the people in our regions, particularly the Kimberley in the northern of Australia and some of our remote communities, they're used to this supply disruption. This is just situation normal for them. The world doesn't come to an end. They just deal with it. We're just going to have to live that experience for a short period.
Yeah, most likely. Now tell us, Cam, do you believe that the transport industry has come together during this in the appropriate manner?
Yeah, look, one thing, and I'll speak as a West Australian, obviously we've got a close relationship with the Territory. The tribalism doesn't really exist. The road industry at all sizes, from the owner-operator, the drivers, right through to the big corporates, everyone's come together. The rail industry, the air industry, and sea are all going, well, what can we do to help? And there's a high degree of collaboration. We have a very strong relationship with our government over here, particularly with our regulator in West Australia, and we've been sitting down and they've been great. We go, all right, we've got a problem. How are we going to deal with it? And we're now putting in those practical solutions. So I think our industry is at its best when it faces a crisis. It is really good.
Okay, great. And what about the governments?
Look, the governments, I think, have now come to realise that, hey, we need our industry. We are not the most glamorous industry. We don't hold the front pages, the business section or the social pages. But, again, as a West Australian, the mining industry will not exist without the road transport industry because we supply some of the most remote mine sites in the state. And we also, for the junior miners, help haul it through to the port. We've just brought in a 21 million tonne bumper harvest for the state. Now, that's all reliant on the road transport industry getting it through to the receival points and helping rail as well get it down to the ports. Everything in this state ultimately revolves around road transport, and we're really good at it. So I've got great faith in our people and in our government, I think, in the way that we can actually work through these challenges.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Cam. Really appreciate your time and for explaining all of that to us.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.